Is cereal causing cancer? Some news and reports were just released, so let's get into the details. Hey, what's up? It's Vince Leah from VinceLeah.com. Thanks for joining me again today. And if you're new here to the channel, I do a lot of videos around health and plant-based nutrition, including recipes, taste test videos, and also discuss the latest news and reports. So make sure you subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss a thing. So let's get into the story that certain breakfast cereals and snacks that you and your family are eating may cause cancer. Now recently, a lawsuit was just announced where Monsanto, the makers of the weed killer Roundup, were ordered to pay $289 million in damages and found liable for Dwayne Johnson, a school groundskeeper, for developing a non-Hodgkin's lymphoma cancer. And even I remember using Roundup to spray weeds growing up. And actually, leave me a comment if you or someone you know has used Roundup in the past as well. Now, Mr. Johnson was mixing and spraying up to 150 gallons of Roundup and other weed killers with the herbicide glyphosate 20 to 30 times a year. And the most important word in that statement is glyphosate. Now, glyphosate is used to control weeds on croplands. And it's also been linked to cancer by California state scientists and the World Health Organization. Not only is glyphosate being used to kill weeds, it's also being used on some of the crops of food that we eat. However, rather than telling you about all these products, I thought we'd go to the store and see how many of them I could find. So let's go do a little shopping. We're going to be looking for foods that were recently listed on a report commissioned by the EWG, also known as the Environmental Working Group. And you'll probably notice that all these products have one ingredient in common: oats. Now normally, oats would be considered healthy and safe to eat, and they are, except when they contain high levels of glyphosate. According to their results, glyphosate was found in all but 2 of 45 samples of products made with conventionally grown oats. And in addition, about 1/3 of 16 samples made with organically grown oats also had traces of glyphosate. However, they were at levels that were well below EWG's health benchmark for safety. You may have heard of genetically modified foods, and these are crops started from seeds that have been genetically modified to withstand glyphosate and other chemicals and herbicides that are sprayed on them. And I did some videos earlier about the Dirty Dozen and the Clean 15. I'll go ahead and link those videos in the description box below so you can check them out after this. However, according to the EWG, glyphosate is also being sprayed on wheat, barley, oats, and beans that are not genetically engineered. And the glyphosate basically kills the crops, dying it out so it can be harvested sooner than if it was left to die naturally. Without getting too technical, let's go over a quick baseline to understand how the EWG determined their benchmark for what is considered safe to eat. And let me just say, the fact that we're discussing a safe amount of something to eat that may cause cancer that is not necessary is disturbing in itself. Now, the EWG calculated that most conventional oat products exceed 160 parts per billion, meaning that a single serving of those products would exceed the EWG's health benchmark. I'm in the store. Let's see what I can find. What I found. Now I realize that some of these foods are vegan and some of them aren't, but I really wanted to bring attention to the fact that some of the foods that you never thought would have glyphosate actually have some really high levels. And it's always good to be educated about the subject and aware of what's going on. Now, there are 5 different types of oat food groups that the EWG tested, and they broke it up into granola, instant oats, oat breakfast cereal, snack bars, and whole oats. So I'm just gonna go over just a few examples of some of the products that had the highest amount of glyphosate. Surprisingly, the biggest offender was Quaker Old Fashioned Oats, which had 2 of 3 samples containing over 1,000 parts per billion. And even 1 sample of good old Bob's Red Mill tested at 300 parts per billion. Next, we have Cheerios cereal. Now obviously it's not vegan, but this was a staple of my childhood breakfast, and it had tested samples of 490, 470 and 530 parts per billion. Next, we have Nature Valley Crunchy Granola Bars. Now, this was a snack that I always used to have as a kid and even as an adult before I went vegan, and it had tested values of 340 and 120 parts per billion. Next, we have Quaker Dinosaur Eggs Instant Oatmeal. Now, it had tested samples of 620 and 780 parts per billion. And the most disturbing fact about this is that it's being marketed directly at kids, and it still contained high levels of glyphosate. There are a lot more products on this list, as you can see from everything that I dumped in the back of the car, and I'm not gonna go over everything, but I will include this information in the description box below so you can check it out. And one thing that you may notice is that this list does contain organic oat products. And although glyphosate was only found at levels of 10 to 30 parts per billion in 5 of 16 samples, it is interesting that any levels of this herbicide was found at all. And this can happen in a couple of different ways. Either the pesticide drifted onto organic crops while they were spraying, or cross-contamination during processing. Now, the organic samples that were present were manufactured by Bob's Red Mill and Nature's Path. And Nature's Path did issue the following statement: while organic farming certifications prohibit the use of glyphosate, organic products do not always end up completely free of glyphosate residue. While this news may come as disappointing, it's not entirely surprising. Glyphosate use has skyrocketed in the past decade, and it maintains the ability to adhere to water and soil particles long enough to travel through the air or in a stream to nearby organic farms. So, should you stop eating oats altogether? Now, even with this EWG report and the lawsuit that I mentioned earlier, the EPA still denies that glyphosate may increase the risk of cancer. And they have their own reports and studies to back up this claim. And I'm sure there'll be lawsuits going back and forth, with reports saying it's bad and other reports saying it's perfectly safe for consumption. But here's what I think. There is no reason that any pesticide that is used to kill weeds should be sprayed anywhere near the food we eat, especially food that a large number of children are eating. Bottom line, glyphosate doesn't belong in our food. Ultimately, the decision to eat any of these oat products is up to you. And it doesn't mean you have to throw away everything that you have in the house. However, based on the information we reviewed, I would definitely start looking at organic oats versus conventional when possible. And you may want to see what brands tested low or have no glyphosate levels at all. And I'd also look at how many oats you're eating, since you may want to try to limit your exposure. So leave me a comment and let me know what you think of all this information, and if you think it may influence what you decide to eat. And if you like this video, give it a big thumbs up, subscribe to the channel as I post new videos every week, and join the Fit From Food notification squad by clicking on that bell next to the subscribe button. And remember to keep living fit from food, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.